What is up, everybody? Welcome to my first video of my Amanda Knox Waiting to Be Heard book review. If you're new to the channel, I've done book reviews on books written by Ken Kratz, Jerome Buting. I'm currently doing one written by Marcia Clark right now as well. And now I am doing Amanda Knox's book. If you're unfamiliar with Amanda Knox's case, she was falsely accused of killing her roommate in Italy. And this book is her story about what she went through during that time. I highly recommend you picking this book up if you haven't already. You can purchase it at bookstores, on Amazon. It is a fantastic read so far. She goes into way more detail, talks about a lot of other things in the book than what I'm going to cover in the videos. So again, I highly recommend you getting this book. Amanda Knox also has a podcast. She's highly active on Twitter. She's a great Twitter follow. She posts a lot on Instagram as well. I will link everything Amanda Knox in the description below so you can follow her, so you can check out her podcast, everything. Just go to the description and you'll find everything there. Alright, so let's jump into part one of my Amanda Knox Waiting to Be Heard book review. She talks about walking into the courtroom on December 4th, 2009, hoping that the tradition of justice would protect her. Unfortunately, it did not. Talks about when the verdict came back guilty. The guards had to carry her out of the courtroom because she couldn't stand. She couldn't feel her legs. Blood was pounding in her ears. I could not imagine being that far away from home. Sure, her family was there in the courtroom, but they weren't going to be able to stay there with her in Italy in jail the entire time. I could not imagine being so young and being forced to go to prison in a foreign country whose language you are just learning for something that you didn't do. I could not imagine the feeling that she must have been experiencing at that time. Now, she goes back further in her life. She talks about her childhood. She talks about growing up. Talks about how her parents were divorced growing up. Talks about how her mom was more of a free spirit and her dad was more strict. Talks about how going to be Italy would be the first time that she would ever be on her own. Talks about meeting Meredith for the first time on September 20th, 2007. States that Meredith was very friendly. States that her and Meredith had a lot in common. They both came from middle-class families. Both had divorced parents. States that they didn't go to the same school while they were in Italy. Amanda Knox states that during her first month in Italy, she spent more time with Meredith than anybody else. Amanda Knox states that her and Meredith were closer to each other than they were any of their other roommates. Amanda Knox talks about how she got the nickname Foxy Knoxy. She got it from playing soccer back home in Seattle because she was fast and reliable for finding an open opponent and stealing the ball. So her teammates gave her that name. She is very, very open about her sex life in this book because it was such a prominent focus point of the trial. She probably felt like she had to be, and she is. She's very, very open about her sex life in this book. She goes into a lot of detail about encounters she had with a few guys leading up to meeting who her boyfriend was at the time the crime took place, Raffaele. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. I've gotten that from documentaries and things that I've watched in the past, so hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Amanda Knox then talks more about her relationship with Meredith, talks about how months later prosecutors would say her relationship with Meredith had soured and they would fight about men, manners, and money. The three M's, I guess. Amanda states, that's from me, not Amanda. Amanda Knox states this wasn't true. They didn't fight about anything. They got along really well. Amanda Knox states that she treated Meredith as a confidant and Meredith treated her with respect and a sense of humor. Amanda Knox talks about wanting to get a job to fill the downtime she had in Italy, the downtime she had in between her classes. This is when she started to work at the bar. Her job was to hand out flyers to get people into the bar. Then when the bar opened, she would help Patrick. She was a waitress at the bar. She was hired to work from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. She states now, looking back, they never asked her about any of her previous work experience. She thinks they hired her because she would attract guys into the bar. Amanda Knox states that working at the bar wasn't always easy. She didn't understand Patrick's directions a lot of the time. He didn't really speak English, and that she had to rely on someone else to translate. Not only did Patrick not speak English, she's working at a bar. There's music blaring. You can probably barely understand English directions when you're at a new job at this particular time, let alone a language that you're learning to speak. Amanda Knox states that she didn't know it at the time, but where she was staying in Italy had the highest concentration of heroin addicts in Italy, but she didn't know it until she was already in prison bunking with drug dealers. I could not imagine. I mean, who could? There's a very, very few people out there that can put themselves in Amanda Knox's shoes. Put in her shoes directly? Absolutely not. But what I mean by that is being falsely accused for something they didn't do and having to spend time in prison for that. She talks about meeting Raffaele by random chance at a performance of a string and piano quintet. She met him at a concert. Meredith was also at this concert but left during intermission, and Raffaele saw that there was an open seat next to her and asked if he could sit. She talks about how life may have been different, definitely for him, if Meredith didn't leave, if he didn't approach her to ask about that empty seat. Such a crazy turn of events that led to their next few years of life being in prison together, or not together, at the same time, for crimes they didn't commit. She stated that after that first night, after meeting Raffaele, and for the next 7 days, they were a thing. They were only together a week or so when the crime took place. Amanda Knox states she sent Meredith a text on Halloween. Now, Halloween in Italy isn't like the United States. Kids don't go door to door, so it's treated a little differently over there. She states she sent Meredith a text on Halloween asking, "What are you doing tonight? Do you want to meet up? Do you have a costume?" To which Meredith replied, "Yes, I have one, but I'm going to a friend's house for dinner. What are your plans?" She states that the prosecutors in the case would later use that text and showing it as proof of the friendship between Meredith and Amanda, even though she signed the text, she ended the text message with X, which means kisses. Now that seems like a stretch. That text message, "What are you doing tonight? Do you want to meet up? Do you have a costume?" "Yes, I've got one, but I already have dinner plans." That does not, under any circumstances, seem like a friendship. That just means, "Oh, I'm busy, but yeah, I've got a costume." Like, that's such a normal thing to say. And she states that on November 1st, she was hanging out with Raffaele at his place when she realized it was Thursday, one of the days she was supposed to work at the bar. She quickly grabbed her phone and then saw she had a text from her boss, Patrick. I am not going to attempt to butcher the Italian pronunciation of the sentence, but when translated, the message stated she didn't have to come in to work tonight. November 1st in Italy is kind of a big day. It's All Saints Day. So because it was a big day, he figured that the bar wouldn't be as busy, so she didn't have to come in to work. She replied with, "See you later. Have a good evening." Again, she writes the Italian and the English in the book, but when translated, her message said, "See you later, have a good evening." Now, November 2nd, this is the day everything begins. November 2nd is All Souls Day in Italy. Not as big as a day as November 1st, which is All Saints Day, but because it was on a Friday, a lot of people were treating it like a 4-day weekend. They do that all over the world, apparently. I know here in Canada, if there's something going on a Thursday, people will often take the Friday off to have your 4-day weekend. They plan to take a long drive into the countryside of Italy. I can't imagine how beautiful that must be, the countryside of Italy. But that was the day where she would go home and her life would change forever. Forever. She would never, ever just be known as Amanda Knox ever again. She would always be tied to this case, even though the court overturned the verdict and sent her home innocent. She is still tied to this case. She still gets horrible, horrible messages, not only directed at her, but directed at her family, her young child. If you don't like Amanda, that's one thing. But to direct messages at her young, innocent child, who clearly has absolutely nothing to do with any of this, but your hatred towards somebody is going to make you say derogatory things about her child, you really, really need to take a look in the mirror and see who you are. You cannot like Amanda, that's fine. But saying derogatory things about her child is so far offside, so far past the line, it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, clearly, I'm a supporter of Amanda Knox. I think what she's been through is absolutely horrific. I think what happened to Meredith is unspeakably terrible. That family lost their daughter and they will never be able to get her back, and that is so sad. But that doesn't mean you need to hold hatred in your heart for somebody that didn't commit the crime, for somebody that was found innocent. Courts make mistakes all the time. I don't know about the history of false convictions in Italy, but in the United States, it's a thing that happens all of the time. Just because you're convicted, it doesn't mean you're guilty. If you're innocent, a lot of these falsely convicted people are later able to prove their innocence, and they should be treated as such, just like Amanda Knox. The court, the lawyers in Italy made a ton of mistakes, and she should not be remembered as Amanda Knox, the killer. She should be remembered as Amanda Knox, the woman that was falsely imprisoned in Italy for a crime she did not commit. And that's where I'm going to leave off part 1 of my Amanda Knox Waiting to Be Heard, the New York Times bestseller book. Part 1 of my review. Pick it up on Amazon. Pick it up in bookstores. All of her info is linked in the description below. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with part 2.